Hi guys, welcome back to the Jack Revell Show. Today I've got a good friend and guest on, Sam Jones, who is a fellow coach and somebody who has been lighting up my LinkedIn feed recently with his amazing coach diaries, which, if I'm honest, is something that's been really refreshing because I, being a coach, as well as also a lot of other people in my circle, sometimes struggle with the basics of actually just being heard and actually getting what we like to think is our insights across. And so Sam has come on today to talk about that, as well as also his story about how he got into it and kind of what his mission in life is. So welcome to the show, Sam.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jack. Appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. First of all, before we get started, I just wanted to kind of dive into coaching from a background of your perspective. Where did it start for you?
I've been asked this question over the years, and it keeps evolving. It keeps going deeper and deeper. It's been like I'm not sure if it's like psychotherapy when I keep talking about this, but it goes as far back as I've always been quite a sensitive guy. As in, I've always found it really interesting, things like the mind, how people react to things, and I always felt like I was able to see things on a deeper level when it came to human interaction, right? Like I think a lot of coaches or a lot of people have. It's not anything special. It's just something that I always felt. And I always saw it as a bit of a weakness, if I'm honest, me being a bit more sensitive. And I never really had the confidence to, even though I loved the idea of starting up a business or doing something on my own feet when I was a teenager, like I loved the idea of it. I never had a lot of confidence as a kid. And I remember seeing an MTV show, which is basically, in a nutshell, where teenagers lose a load of weight over 100 days. And it's not that that's the main part of the program. The main thing is they get themselves a mentor. And there's this one guy called Joey, who's this like stacked, tattooed guy in America who looks like the scariest dude on earth, but he's just this big softy and is just so good at relating to people and so down to earth and doesn't talk or didn't talk to people in a way that was like really fluffy and all fake smiles and things like that. And I just thought, wow, if I had the confidence to do that, that was personal training, obviously, but if I had the confidence to do that with people, is there a job like that out there? And I was only maybe 18, something like that, maybe 17, 18 when I saw that. And yet, fast forward years ahead, I got to a good uni, didn't do very well in that uni because I didn't really fit into that. And I ended up on job seekers and housing benefits after that, coming from in like a decent, like sort of middle class background. And I felt like embarrassed that I'd had every opportunity afforded to me. And yet I'd sort of sucked at it, really. I'd followed the same path and sucked at it. And managed to get back on my feet, go off the benefits, taught me a lot. And after a few years of working, I found coaching. And I thought, this is on one side that I get to potentially work with people, but I can be like that guy Joey. On the other side, I thought he was incredibly fluffy and just sort of Americanized self-help. I saw that stuff and it just bit me. So I thought, if I can maybe bring my own style to it, maybe there's something there. And worked it. And I've been doing it about 8 years now. Still love it. Still embrace all the challenges that come with it that a lot of coaches face. But I'm in a very fortunate position through a lot of hard work, and I do like the industry. It's fantastic.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing that. It's always interesting hearing from different coaches and their backgrounds as to how they got to that point. And it usually comes from a place of seeing someone in need or helping and wanting to do something for them, or from a place where you've hit kind of, rock bottom, so to speak, and you kind of have to build yourself back up from that point. So that's awesome, man. That's really, really cool. And in terms of what you do now, do you work with people on a one-to-one basis, or do you work with people in group environments? How is your business set up as we speak at the moment?
Yeah, it's one-to-one basis. So I've done a lot of events that I've done with people. So when I started doing a lot of events, and that's how I sort of got my name out there around London. But now I just work one-to-one with people, and it's weird. I sort of stumbled upon some weird niches over the time. Like I started off just working with everyday people like you and me, people with direction, and got into that. Really loved the purpose and finding meaning and direction, and doing that in a very, like, how do you do that in a very practical way for people? That was a real thing for me. And so I did that, and then I got an influencer, so somebody that works on Instagram, basically, and builds a community on there. They wanted to work with me. I started working with them, and I started getting referred there. So I became one of the go-tos in the influencer space, and I'd work on with them on that, which was, I kind of stumbled upon it, started playing. I thought, wow, let's build this market, and it was a fascinating area. I don't work with as many influencers like or public figure people as much now. I still work with the odd few, but it's not my main focus. But it's a fascinating area, and I've been mentoring coaches now because I got to a good level for about 3 years now, about 3-ish years now, which is I do really love, because it comes from a place as well that I've made it success in an area that I feel is right for me, sort of that single one-to-one coaching model that I've done very well at. And it's great seeing other coaches come through and, you know, really cutting through the bullshit, like, and seeing what works for them and making it work for them. And that's what I've tried to do with Coach Diaries now on LinkedIn in the last sort of several weeks and months, is cut all these adverts out there preaching that there's this way to do something or there's that way to do something, or all these I think you might have even mentioned these like quick courses you can do for 20 quid or 25 quid, breaking through all of that and saying, well, there are some techniques that work better than others, but it is finding your path and trying to get through to that as quickly as possible. And that's what I try and do for coaches. It's always going to be tough whether you've got a good mentor or not, like, or you've got a good course or not. It's always tough to build a coaching business, but you can definitely make it better avoiding certain mistakes and not falling into traps that the coaching industry commonly does.
That's it. I think fundamentally, you know, as coaches, we understand the benefit of having a coach or a mentor, and understand that in order to be able to move forward with life and do the next thing and do what is the next step, essentially, you need to have someone that guides you through that, because, you know, you're not born knowing all the secrets of the world. So the best way to find that out is to model someone that's done it before you. So I think that, you know, I think it's great that you've become somebody that to newer people coming through the ranks. And as you mentioned, your Coach Diaries are brilliant because they're just real and authentic, and they're not, like you said, the bullshit that you do see online, which is a lot of kind of noise. So what spurred that on initially? What was it that made you think, you know what, I need to start telling people exactly how I feel about this crap that's going on around me?
Probably because I did it. Like, that's probably the key thing. Like, although I like painted that beautiful picture at the beginning, I was this like white knight that came through and wanted to change the coaching industry. That's not true. Like, I felt at the beginning the pressure to conform and to be really self-helpy, and I would shudder if I saw myself at some of my early events, like trying to be Tony Robbins or trying to be someone that I wasn't, right? Because I felt that pressure, you know, and it's probably through an inner frustration why I did that. And it is difficult to find your voice or find who you are. There's ways of doing it much quicker, but it is quite a challenging process. And once you do find that, then just doing that, like, for example, in this podcast, I'm not at this moment where I would have been 6 years ago, thinking ahead, what do I need to say? What's going to impress Jack? What's going to make me sound qualified or good? I'm not thinking about that. I'm just thinking, just be relaxed, just chat and see what comes out. And that you have to trust yourself to do that. And a lot of people don't do that, like coaches and outside of coaching, just human beings. They don't trust themselves that the right thing is going to come out because they think there's something wrong with them or they're not good enough and all that. And I completely get it. But I just believe personally that the best things do come out when you're less edited. And a lot of people talk about that. They all say, yeah, just be authentic, be yourself. I do get the struggle because I was, as I said, I was not that in my early days. So I think it's born out of like Coach Diaries now is I try and do it in one take. The odd one's done in 2 takes, because I will really stumble on it, it'll spoil the video. But I try and do it in one take if I can. I shoot a few at a time. I shoot from the hip. I talk about problems. I don't have all the answers. I love looking at comments because I see some of the comments and like, shit, that's a really good point, actually. And I mentor coaches, and I'm in a very good place to do that. I'm still learning. And also, my business can still fumble. Like, I'm not, just because I mentor coaches now, it doesn't mean that I have challenges in my business or that I'm not arrogant enough to think if I don't get enough clients next month, you know, I'm screwed. You know, you've got to have that level of, I think a lot of us think we have to portray that we're got it all as a coach in order to mentor or to be seen as successful as clients. We don't. I think if you spread that, you'll lose 1 or 2 clients along the way, but you'll gain the right sort of people. And I try and live by that. It's not always easy, because it is easier to be like, show that you're completely legit and all that all the time and always on it. But I just think long-term game wise, it is a lot better in this environment. People trust that, and it's the right way to do things.
Absolutely. I found that particularly at the beginning of when the world went into dismay and lockdown, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn went mental. Everyone was on that because that was the only way we could communicate with each other. And specifically in the
Mm.
coaching world, there was a lot of kind of space being taken up by, Instagram lives and videos and like teaching people how to be okay and mental health and all that sort of stuff, which is great. But then it became almost too much, and it's so hard to sort of sift through the stuff that's not really, valuable, and the stuff that is. And on another point, coaching isn't regulated like a lot of other professions kind of under this umbrella. And I think that there is a lot of people that have latched onto the life coach wagon, if you like, and are sort of preaching a word that isn't necessarily coming from a great background. What do you think of that?
I've never met a coach yet that I think this person shouldn't be a coach. I've never had that. Like when I've spoken to coaches just on the off cuff, potentially working with them. I've never met someone like that. I think we have a challenge with, because where it's a positive place and it's a positive industry, that we can sometimes look past the reality of things, and that we have to portray that there's easy steps to things, or there's simple things, or there's no gray areas. And we try and give maybe simple answers to more complex things, which is not necessarily wrong, but it's also we have to recognize these gray areas and can't overpromise. I think that's part of the problem. I think you've got to do the basics of getting good qualification, having the right intention, which again, I haven't come across anyone like that in the first instance. I've seen a lot of stuff, like as in like certain adverts and things like that, but it's not life coaching specifically, or non-directive life coaching. It's more in the areas of, the sort of six-figure, get a Lambo, Amazon selling, drop shipping, all that sort of stuff. It tends to be there, right? So it's almost like that this minority maybe that are not good for the coaching industry. That's quite a loud voice, and then we all are around there like trying to chase the boogeyman of like who's the bad people and like what's wrong, and because it's unregulated and stuff like that. When really, in my experience, I haven't come across many people I think, oh, you're not good for this. I've come across like anyone. I come across coaches I don't get along with, or that I feel don't do it in the approach that I'd want. As I said, it's more fluffy or whatever, but that approach is also right for some people, even though I don't think it is. Doesn't mean that it's not for others. Like I'm not, my videos on LinkedIn, some people probably hate those and think that they're rubbish. Like we have to fit other people. So where I've come to the conclusion of it is that vive la différence, like as in let's get people that could do their own thing, even if I don't agree with it. But the fundamentals that we have to have is I want to see a level of genuine expertise or qualification, saying where you actually are and not pretend to be something you're not. As I said, I was a not proponent. I acted like that in my earlier career, sort of 2 years in, because I needed to pay, like I needed to do well. I was a good coach. Like I was still growing. But I had to try and show that in my early years. So to that, and then the biggest thing for me then is just a level of truth. If we can just be genuinely honest and truthful and transparent where they're at, that for me is a big part of it, with these other basics of being qualified and so on and so forth. I get why people won't do that. I do get it. It's this sort of toxic positivity that we're always doing fine. Yeah, everything's great and stuff like that. Let's try and get away from that. I think that's a great start.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of people who, as you said, are trying desperately to get clients or to try and make themselves heard, and therefore kind of almost like clutching at straws just to say anything that will catch on to get some signals going their way. But ultimately, the authenticity and the kind of the truth does cut through at the end of it, and people will recognize you when you're being authentic and you're being true to who you are. If you've got a background in X, Y, and Z, and you're helping people in that background, it definitely stands you in better stead. And we talk about niches. For me, a niche is a funny word because, or they call it a niche in America, which I always laugh when they put them on the podcast. But it's funny because it's so hard to define your niche, or your sector, from just kind of when you're starting out, because it's honed in so quickly. You must find your niche, but actually if you just start coaching, you find your niche as you go along. You find the people you like coaching, because that's also half of it. You could be a niche in, say, like finance, but like don't get on with people in finance. So that might not be the way that you coach. It might be something different. So yeah, I completely agree with you that, being authentic and truthful coming through is definitely the way forward. In terms of your diaries and stuff, you've talked a lot about kind of like language and sort of things like that, with how people come across in videos and in their testimonials and how they present themselves as a coach. What's your opinion on people being too ballsy, for example, or too fluffy, or too sort of kind of one way or the other? Do you think that that's a good thing to be polarizing, or do you think it's good to just kind of like keep it kind of level playing field?
It's whatever is the actual truth of the individual. Okay, so if somebody's personality or their nature is one of those extremes, like that dichotomy, if you will, like the two extremes, or polarizing, that's genuinely them, fine, I'm okay with that. Like, and it also, it's not me to pass judgment, it's just my opinion. It doesn't mean that that's correct. It's just my opinion and what I've seen. I think the most people that I see that are more polarizing or out there or anything like that tend to be actors. And I don't believe that sustainable, I don't believe it's the right path to go as far as having a fulfilling career, feeling truly successful by just acting away to it. And it can make you a lot of money. You can become a thought leader. There's a lot of big people in our industry out there that are actors. They are not being themselves. But people think, oh my God, she's so authentic, or he's so authentic. They're not actually. They're acting. They're being fake vulnerable because they know that being vulnerability boosts up their engagement, or they are putting posts out there that they know like absolutely bang. Like, I'm gonna be really direct here. Mental health is a big part of my life, with me, my family, all things like that. I have shared stuff about it. People have played upon that because they know that's the hot thing, or being a hot thing, and will get them like that engaging post or things like that. Those sorts of things go on in the coaching industry because it's the hot thing to do. And that, for me, is what's wrong. It's when your intentions are a bit off. Okay. And I just want to keep repeating, because I know I've done this a few times. I have got this wrong in the past. That's why I'm so strong in it, because I don't want to see other coaches doing it. I'm not putting my hands up here that I've been a Boy Scout all the way through. My early career, I got it wrong, because I felt the pressure to do that, because that was the industry. And I was like, this isn't me. And it made me feel bad. And you can get to success from that as far as financial success. But for me, that true success of getting to a place where you can be honest with yourself, that classic, like, look in the mirror and be like, yeah, what I said there was true. Whether it was perfect or not, or I came across the best way I could, it is secondary. Was I genuinely truthful, transparent there? And can I almost back myself and back that? I'll give you a quick example. Sorry to rabbit on, but this is probably a really useful one for people. Is that I reach out to a few people on LinkedIn. I find certain people that might match in my market, and then I'll reach out to them. I'll personalize it as much as possible, but I'll reach out to them and say, this looks like it could be something for you, could be wrong, but is this something you want to talk about? And I'll do it as properly as I can. Every now and then I'll make a mistake on that. I'll read something wrong. I might be in a bit of a rush. I might have had a bad day, whatever. And I'll do that, and I'll get it wrong, and they won't be right for it. And they'll get back and would said, oh, I do this or whatever. And it's a mistake I've made. Instead of me getting defensive, if they come back at me or whatever, I'd be like, hands up, yeah, made a mistake. Or if people have a go at me for something that I've done, I'd be like, you know what, I can see it from their perspective. That for me is very, very important for me. And I want other coaches to do that, because there's a lot of pressure not to do that, to become defensive, to lose humility, to fake it, to manipulate or do different intentions to get ahead. I just don't think it's long-term sustainable, and you don't trust yourself then, because you're bullshitting yourself. And then that trust, that self-trust, you lose a bit of confidence. Again, you can do it whichever way you want, but for me, the long-term game for this, and it is a long-term game, you've got to be going down those paths. It's just much better for you, and much better for the client.
Who are your mentors in terms of the sort of the big shots in the coaching space? Who are the people that you maybe in the beginning looked up to and now look up to in terms of how they're doing things and how they're sort of trailblazing the way that the industry's going?
I had a guy, I don't know, should I say his name? I won't say his name for now, just in case. But he'll know who he is. Yeah, Mr. X. So when I was qualifying, so this is, maybe you might was this 7 years ago now. He's one of the probably highest earning in the UK at the moment. Absolute maverick, like complete opposite to me, like in a lot of different ways. Some similarities, but very, very opposite to me. Doing incredibly well now. He was my early mentor. Guy is a loose cannon, bit of a cowboy in some ways, but it's good what it does. He doesn't believe in qualifications, anything like that. But he took me under his wing, and I learned a lot of how to do certain things. I helped him out a lot. I was one of his associate coaches, and I learned a lot of not necessarily what not to do, but what I didn't feel comfortable doing. And he was a good mentor of mine and a friend for about 2-3 years. We're not in touch anymore. But yeah, he was a huge part of it. Another lady I had who is opposite to that, she's done incredibly well and is an incredibly good coach. Coached me for a while as well. She's called Michelle Zelli. Great woman. Did a few different projects with her as well. I've had other coaches as well, some in different niches. I was very fortunate to get good mentorship, but I was a very good mentee. I think that is a key thing to point out. Everyone's looking for a mentor. That's one thing. You have to be a good mentee, as in listen, learn what isn't good as well, as in like what's not right with them, what they're doing. And also offer value as well, like offer a lot of value, and don't just be a puppet, if you will, to that thing. You've got, it's a huge opportunity to learn over a period of a few weeks or years for some of my mentors. And I distinguish between a mentor and almost like a paid course mentor. These ones I'm describing, I have lots of trainers and things like that have trained me, but these mentors, I don't know why I see them differently, but I would see them quite differently, a few of these, because it was less structured. It wasn't like a 6-week course to learn how to do LinkedIn or to whatever it might be. So yeah, if I was looking for mentors right now, because a lot of people are looking for mentors, paid or non-paid, be a great mentee. Like, it's huge, especially if you're paying for it. You've got to be on it. Like, it's your money at the end of the day. So yeah, those are a few people, like maybe a few more as well, not as wild as that. Those are quite extreme ones, especially the first guy. But again, you learn a hell of a lot. Like, I would also, sorry to grab it on, I would also look for someone to mentor you that you're a bit uncomfortable with as well, or makes you feel a bit uncomfortable. I think that's probably sounds like an obvious thing, but I think I avoided that quite early on. Someone that like really challenges you and really calls you out. I think that's very important. If you feel very, very comfortable speaking to someone and you just really get along and everything's great, they could be good for you, but there's also, it's good to have some mentors that make you feel a bit like, or feel a bit off. I think that's quite useful as well. I've certainly had those.
I agree. I think, starting out, I mean, I haven't been doing this as long as you, but I've definitely found that you gravitate towards people in the industry who you either enjoy their coaching style and you kind of want to learn from that, or people that are so the opposite end of what you're used to. You're almost intrigued as to how they're kind of doing their thing. So I totally get that. And it's interesting. The person I think of whenever I look at kind of upping my game is Rich Litvin. He's in my opinion, a really powerful coach, because he takes coaching to kind of like the next 2 levels of where you're kind of already at. He thinks so big and so far forward that he really gets people outside of their comfort zone by just really thinking a lot bigger and better than what they already could be. It's almost like putting ideas into their head, if you like. But I love that way of thinking, because so many people, I think, when they come to the point where they look to get a coach or a mentor, they're still looking that sort of just that little bit ahead of them. They're not necessarily looking that far ahead to actually think about the big plans and kind of really plan for the big stuff in the future. So yeah, having those people trailblaze that part of the industry is really important. And as you said, moving from coach to coach, mentor to mentor over time is so beneficial, just to help with your development. And you're going to be that person, I'm going to be that person, everyone listening who is a coach will be that person for somebody one day. So it's really important to almost pass that knowledge down through the ranks and ensure that it stays around. You look at the big guns of the industry, like the Zig Ziglars and the Tony Robbins and all those guys, the ones that are famous, if you like, but they've also got some incredibly good knowledge that has been, passed down through generations and will continue to do so for forevermore. Have you been to any big seminars like Tony Robbins before?
Nah, I don't really get along with it. I see I see how it can give you value. I see how you can learn a lot from it. for me, that stuff, which I think is valuable for the majority of people, why I would say it's not as good for me is it's more about they are very concerned with marketing the upline and things like that, and getting the next thing they can tie you upon. They obviously think about value. They obviously are valuable. But for me, those things become a lot about how they can use their language and how they can use their experiences to sell you more and to get more from you. Now, that's not a bad thing. If you get value from it, fantastic. I'm sure if I went to a Tony Robbins like 3-4 day seminar, I'm sure I'd probably enjoy it and it'd be great. For me, it doesn't quite sit right. It's just the way I've chosen to do it. Could I probably expand my business and get better from going to those? Yeah, absolutely, like completely. I went to a guy who advertises a lot on Facebook, quite a well-known guy. Again, I won't say him because I kind of don't want to slag people off too much, but I just saw his stuff. It's incredibly clever marketing, and it plays to, I think, people that are a bit more like keen to grow their business, but they really lost, right? And they give a overall solution and then just try and upsell, right? And I went along to one of his day things, his 3-day things, and it was just very uncomfortable. And I saw the almost seal like culture that it created, is in like, where I mean seals, like people like clapping along, just going just like whatever was said, because it's very cleverly done. It plays upon all your emotions, a lot of different NLP techniques and that to get you to buy. Again, it's very smart. It just doesn't sit right with me. That's all. And again, I'm not trying to be a Boy Scout. It just doesn't sit with me. So I'd rather be happy with what I'm earning and how I'm doing it than do more of that stuff. But yeah, it's super helpful for those guys. Been to the odd seminar, just most of them don't tend to fit me.
Exactly. It doesn't sit with your values and your beliefs around kind of what coaching is for some people and what coaching isn't. And you're right, the NLP side of that side of the industry is huge. You know, it's very much like getting people into that state of like, well, I need to buy this next thing because that's going to help me solve my problems. And for some people that works. For others, they need a more personal approach, which is what
Can I jump in there?
Of course.
Yeah, sorry, Jack. It's like, I think a lot of coaches maybe knowing what they know, NLP or just different experiences, like a lot of experienced coaches can say things or can use sales techniques that they've learned during a consultation that can put somebody over the line and get their money in their pocket. I know I can. I absolutely know certain things I can do in a consultation that would make somebody sign up quicker, whatever. Okay, those sorts of things. There's a very fine line between making sure somebody does something that they want to do and putting them into a state or an environment to give money that's not necessarily giving them enough time, making sure it's right for them, and so on and so forth. I know I would know how to do that, and I could generate more clients or revenue. However, I just don't think it's going to be right for them or me. They can still get value out of these things. It's just, I just don't feel it's right. So I just rather be like that. And with these bigger things or these bigger projects, there's obviously obvious ones on Facebook ads and those things that are really obvious. But I think in big aspects of the coaching world or self-help motivational world that do that, and it just doesn't sit right with me. I think it's in the pandemic, I've consciously taken more time for a client to sign up. As in before, if they said yes, like I would go along the path. A few times, not all the time, I'll be honest, but like a few times I've been like, just sit with it for a little while because a lot's going on, or let's have another catch up first, just to double check over things. It's kind of what your guy Rich Litfin does quite a bit, right? Just because of the environment, and there's a lot of uncertainty, and I want to make sure that make sure. I just think that's the right way. When I'm on the Coach Diary videos, I just think that's the right way of doing business, and it seems to pay off. I think it does pay off long term, and that's what I kind of don't like about the bigger fish out there. Not all of them. Some are unbelievable, and some seminars are fantastic and they're really down to earth and all that. A lot of big fish, though, not for me. I don't think so.
It comes down to my coach and I talk about how, you know, a relationship with a client is sometimes like planting seeds. It might not be, you reach out to somebody and talk to them about whatever's going on, and it might not be right for them just then, but at least you've made the effort to talk to them about what it is going on in their life at that point. And if you're not going to just go with a hard sell every single time, not only will they appreciate it, but also you'll find you'll not draw your aces or kind of put your cards out on the table in one go. You'll be able to work with that client on the needs that they have, rather than just the stuff that you're able to provide them. And it's, as you said, it's the value that you can provide as a coach. Ultimately, our job is to ensure that people get to the place they want to go. It's the future focused agenda. And if you coerce them into a contract with you for, say, 3 months that they weren't really ready for, neither party's going to get anything out of that. You're not going to get anything out of it in terms of the client doing well. The client's not going to get anything out of it because they're not ready for it. And it's just going to end up in basically being a bit messy, and you're not going to be able to, use them as a great testimonial for your business, and they're not going to be able to spread the great word of what you can do for them. So it's a bit of a, I think there's a lot of people that rush into it because they see, money signs in their eyes. But you're right. I think taking time.
You'll be amazed what goes on. That you'll be amazed that, guess what, that 3-month program that you've got, if you've got pressure to get that because you haven't got enough clients this month or whatever, and you do it, and then you get a bit of cash in, it goes on. It does go on, and they can give some value, and some clients cannot reference what real value is within coaching of what it is. And that coaching is difficult as well. Like the process of coaching, if you're making real change, it has moments it's challenging for the client. I think a lot of us would be surprised that the motivation to get that money through, whatever it is, can sometimes trump some ethics about that. And that's what I see on the bigger things that I'm on about. There's usually an example of seminars. But I think some of that happens because it is a business at the end of the day, and people need to be taught about the business side of coaching, or how to develop that in the right way, so you would never be in that position, as in like you would have enough like income coming through from other places, or that you would do a right offering that would help you gain a certain amount to cover your rent and all your basics, so you're not put under that pressure to do that. So it's a bit of a controversial topic, but there's too much noise out there from people saying certain things that I definitely know are not true, in order for them to push them forward, okay, to grow. There is a motivation for people to do that across all industries, and we've just got to call it out in our industry. I think that's it, which is uncomfortable. I don't like doing it. I'd rather sit here and be like, yeah, everyone's great and no one ever does that. But unfortunately it is there, and we've got to call out, and like you call it out, because then it becomes less acceptable, and then the right people rise to the top, instead of people that are cutting corners or whatever else rise to the top.
Absolutely. So Sam, what are the biggest lessons that you've learned along the way, in terms of kind of, if you look, you mentioned before, you look back on your seminars and events you did when you were, starting out, and you sort of cringe a little bit. What are the biggest lessons you've learned to date that kind of people listening may take value from?
The obvious ones is sort of going with your gut with these things. So I sort of got pulled the other way because I thought I had to, again, act in these. I'm talking a long time ago now. Still, like I had to act. So that became a really strong value for me, of trying as much as I can to go from my gut and to go from that place. I think it's important when you're shaping things that you talked about, like your niche, or how you go about getting clients. I think it's very, very important. What we mentioned as well is being able to stand by what you do, and I referenced it earlier, like being able to look in the mirror and say, I'm happy with the way that I'm running this part of my business, or how I did this consultation, or how I did the session, is much, much better than being perfect, or making the correct question, or doing it. It's much more powerful to be proud of your intention versus some of the outcomes. We all want good outcomes. We all want to perform well, and you've got to work at it. You've got to get better at your craft. That is for year 1 coaches, year 5 coaches, year 10 coaches. But it is that intention of, was I right? Did I make the right call as far as it was the right intention? I think is great. I think it's a really good thing to look. I think another thing for coaches in particular is to push a lot more of their content out there that is more towards who they are. and not try and follow the crowd, like do something a little bit different. So for example, a lot of people doing podcasts or doing videos, do it in their style, be a bit bolder with how they do things, and don't look for a straight away load of likes that tell you that that's correct or a load of comments that tell you that's correct. Do it because you feel that's a cool way of doing things, and persevere within that and shape it, because a lot of the big content styles that work came from a place of somebody trying it out for a while. Like somebody tried it out and then it got big. So I'd really push people to be bold and try different, like the way that you push a podcast out there or the way that you push a video out there, try it in a certain style. You're probably not going to get benefits straight away, but you might start a content style, if you will, or a template for content that is unbelievable. Like, so I would really do that instead of trying to follow, oh, I should do this type of post all the time. I'd say that's a pretty cool thing to do.
I agree. I think when it comes to content, it's a big hot topic because, you know, there is God knows how many platforms to look on. There is God knows how many ways of putting content out there. There is all sorts of different, you know, platforms that you can use to get better content out there. But ultimately, it comes down to value. It comes down to what you're giving your listeners, your viewers, your subscribers, whatever it might be, in terms of why they're following you. And I think so many people focus on, look at me, when it actually, I think, should be putting the spotlight on the people that you're actually helping or the people that you're actually working with, and, you know, enabling things like, I met someone once who felt bad about posting a testimonial. I was like, why? And they said, oh, because it makes me feel like I'm kind of like showing off. I'm like, you're not showing off. You're highlighting the fact that that person has had a really good experience with you. That's better than just putting up a post of you saying, hey, happy Saturday, it's a beautiful day, and I'm a coach and I can help you feel really good about your life. Like, and I think it's that misconstrued feeling of like, am I going to get that dopamine hit from this post, or am I actually just going to showcase what I've done for my clients and help them in their journey? Because ultimately that's going to help you in yours.
Yeah, 100% true. Exactly right. Especially the dopamine hit, as you said. That's such a good way of putting it. It's doing that and following. It's hard. Like online, like we didn't have to do this 10, 15 years ago, where, you know, you're really putting yourself into the world that can be judged. You can be stuff as well. Like I've had a few like message or comment on the coach diaries videos that I said, for example, that I've like missed stuff or got it wrong. Now I'm talking about some big topics, so I'm obviously can't cover everything, but some of them are like, yeah, shit, I should have said it in that way or whatever, but I can't, you know, do it, or I'm just going to happen. So a lot of it does come back. I hate to try and oversimplify it, but it always come back to your intention about what is my intention here. And this person that you said about their intention was, oh, am I like showing off? That sounds like it's just an insecurity thing rather than they are showing off. There are people out there that are showing off, you know, when they do stuff. Have you seen the virtue signaling of videos online where you see people like giving to the homeless, whatever, but they've conveniently got somebody recording them or whatever it is, and people are spotting that now. You know, yeah, people recognize that. Like, people aren't stupid, and I suppose that's what I'm getting at as an overall theme of that of this is that, like, act in a way that you can be proud of when you're running your business. And that's not going to happen all the time because we're going to get stuff wrong. But then from it and think, okay, how I'm going to adapt my processes. And that dopamine hit that you said, that's a great, I hope people take it from that. It's just don't follow that dopamine hit. Follow creativity, follow, like, as in your own creativity, follow being a bit more bold. That is a surefire way of something long-term instead of that short-term thing. You nailed it.
Absolutely. It's also the zero expectations thing. So many people have expectations that they need to have this many followers to have this much for business, or have to have that many likes on a photo in order for it to do and get anywhere. But actually, that's not true. The less expectation you have, the more you're able to be authentic about what you actually put out. And, you know, I can only speak from experience here because I did 18 months of hiatus of social media completely. I just deleted it all, and I learned so much from that time. And actually what I learned was having no expectations of others, because I lost contact with some people but gained better contact with others. And, you know, it gave me this whole different perspective on, you know, if you just do what works for you and you continue to live your life in a way that's, you know, unique and true to yourself, people recognize that and kind of either come along for the ride or they go off and do their own thing, and that's okay as well. So yeah, I think agreeing with what you said before, don't follow coaches and anyone else's kind of path, because, you know, as the expression goes, you're the only person on this planet that can do what you can do. You know, there's no other Sam Jones who's been through what you've done and done what you've done and got to where you are. There's no other Jack Revell who's doing what I'm doing and doing how I've got to my spot. So own that and just be the person that you know is I suppose able to just show and be unique. You know, I think it's a Nassim Taleb quote that's like, your uniqueness is your best weapon. You know, it's being unique is the best thing you can do, because you're always competing with only yourself, and that will make you better anyway going through life. So yeah, man, it's as you said, it's simple stuff, but it's sometimes it takes a bit longer to get through to the minds of others. Sam, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for spending time with me and chatting through all this sort of stuff. I'm sure everyone that's listening has found this really, really helpful. If people wanted to get in touch with you and find out a bit more about your work and kind of what you've been up to and that sort of stuff, where is best to find you?
Yeah, just search me on LinkedIn. It's probably most of my content at the moment that I'm putting out. I'm going to be putting even more out as well. That's really useful. So just Sam Jones on there. Maybe you can chuck a link in, Jack. And then 20 Someone is my website. I've got a for coaches section that talks a little bit about the three main things that are missing really with coaches. So that's pretty useful. But yeah, I'm always open to get a DM and things like that. Like I think most people are, to be honest, aren't they? But I'm always open for a little DM. Yeah, that's the best way.
Perfect. I will absolutely put everything in the show notes below with your links to LinkedIn and your website and everything else in between. But mate, from me, thank you so much again for your time. I've really enjoyed this chat, and I look forward to seeing more Coach Diaries on LinkedIn and catching up with you again shortly.
Cheers, Jack. Thank you.